Hi guys, Redbeard here from the Self-Reliance Preservation Guild, and proud member of the Raised Bed gardening group as well on Facebook. Learning a lot from them, and it's nice to see how many people have raised bed gardens and different growing their own food and being sustainable and self-reliant. It's really great to see. Anyways, I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of do a little tour of my front yard urban garden, I guess you'd call it. Raised beds. I've got 8 4x8 about 16-inch high raised beds, and I filled them with a nice mixture of high-end soil that I purchased. It's a nice ratio of clay and loam, and then I've sort of adjusted them with some homegrown compost. So I have here in this bed some tomatoes, about 6 different varieties, a couple of small varieties, a couple large varieties, and out of some of the compost has sprouted some different cucumbers and squash and such, so I let them kind of tag along down along the bottom. Tomatoes are starting to finally show some fruit here. I trimmed up the bottom leaves a bit to allow for some better ventilation. And over here I've got some pole beans, and again some little random compost freebies, and I built some different trellis situations. It's not the fanciest work by any means, but I like to try to use what I have around, just salvage things, or buy these bamboo shoots at the dollar store. They're pretty cheap and they last a long time. In this bed here I've got ghost peppers, jalapenos, habaneros, or scotch bonnets, and then along the sides here you see you've got some onions. Those were replants from some green onions or spring onions or scallions, I guess whatever you like to call them, that I purchased at the grocery store over the early season, and saved the root ends and planted them, and they're doing really well. So I've got at least a dozen or more. Here was my romaine lettuce bed and a couple of bonus jalapeno plants, but I've just since cleared it out because it's bolted and gone to seed. So we had a good harvest of it, and actually this whole bed reseeded itself from last year's crop. I let the plant grow big just to see what it would do, and I dropped a ton of seed, and I actually have lettuce growing around like weeds everywhere. It's kind of funny. And a couple, again, compost freebie tomatoes. They're just in their early stage. And then in the center, the crown jewel, or piece de resistance, as they say, is my perennial pollinator garden, which is just filled with different local, native, and some foreign perennials. Some of them are grown for medicinal herbal usage, for calming effects, and then the rest are sort of just there for helping the pollinators, and you can see them fluttering all over the place. And there's bumblebees, honeybees, Midas flies, dragonflies, monarchs, swallowtails, like any number of things during the day, depending on what's in bloom and the temperature out. So I've got some echinacea and some California poppy. Over there's some colored yarrow, feverfew. Had a big bumper crop of chamomile, but it went fast this year because we had a really hot spring, but I've got some coming in, but it's probably on its way out. I've harvested all I can. It's a tedious job. Some more yarrow. Oh, those red ones, those were the oriental poppies. Here are the California poppies, my mistake. Some local wild Bee Balm, which is amazing this year. It's got huge blossoms on it. It's gorgeous. I have the purple as well back in the background. It's not as attractive, I find, as the red, but it certainly brings the butterflies and bees and such in. And some more chamomile around here. This yarrow took on a bit of an odd color. It sort of looks dead, but it's got a light kind of pinky orange color to it. Some more echinacea that's about to bud, and some more purple Bee Balm. More echinacea. Got some rutabaga or black-eyed Susies coming in here. And a couple of big, very tall, well over 6.5 feet motherwort plants. So that kind of, and around the front, some more yarrow, more echinacea, chocolate mint, and lots of catnip. And there's some catmint in there as well, which is an amazing pollination plant. Attracts the pollinators. Over here I have spaghetti squash that I seed saved, and they're doing quite well. They started to crawl into the garden, so I had to retrain them, so they're looking a little bit haggard, but they'll straighten up, I'm sure. But starting to bear some fruit, which is exciting. I've got some large turnip, which is my first time growing these, and I'm not sure if what's happening, but I've had 2 of them rot out on me. So I'm not sure if the soil got too wet. There's the rotten guy there. Well, that ever stink when you put your hand in it too. We've had some very hot, dry weather, but then we've had some very heavy rains, and I'm not sure if maybe this crop would do better over in the ground garden rather in this raised bed, which might be holding more water because of the clay. Soil around here, for your information, is fairly sandy. And then I've got some cucumbers going on in this bed. This year I planted quite a few more. And today, because they were kind of going all over the place as well, I rigged up this very, not attractive at the moment, but once they fill out, start climbing up these guidelines here, we'll get them going upward instead of just down across the grass, which is what I usually do. And then more pole beans, which I planted a little later, which will be kind of my second crop. They're just starting to climb now. And some very, very tall, I've never grown this before, but tomatillos. I love to eat them, and I've just never grown them, and I was sort of surprised with how tall they get. I've had to rig them up with all kinds of jute string and bamboo rods because they're just so big, so big. And then over here I've got a little bit late start on some garden peas. So that's kind of the raised bed situation and the perennial garden. And then over here down on the ground level, I've got some heirloom kale that some seeds were given to me from another gardening friend, another random compost friend, and some more spaghetti squash. Growing a lot of those because we like them, and they hold up a long time, I find, without having to deal with them too much. Some carrots going on in there, and what looks like a lot of weeds is actually I had a holy basil plant there last year, and I didn't realize that it dropped a ton of seed, and it's a very useful medicinal herb for me, so I will keep those kind of crowding up the carrots a little bit. If I have to sacrifice a few carrots, I guess that's not the end of the world. And yeah, the rest is just sort of decorative at this point. It's been about 2 years in the works. I can't grow anything in my backyard because it's far too shady. I got some big mammoth trees all around me, giant cottonwood. And this year I've just transplanted some mint because it fills places pretty well, and a couple other tomato plants that I didn't have a home for. And so again, once again, some more compost freebies. Anyways, guys, thanks for taking the time to take the tour of my urban front yard permaculture, I guess we'll call it. This is one of the big trees I had to cut down. It was dying, and that opened up the yard to full sun, which is great. So it's been allowing me to do some effective gardening. Every year it gets a little better. I learn a few things, and I'm certainly learning a lot from the raised gardening community on Facebook. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you around. Take care.